Perhaps over the last few hours, you've checked your phone more times than you would normally want to acknowledge. There is likely a familiar weight sitting with you now, an uneasy blend of hope and acceptance appearing just as the festive excitement starts to wear off. You have stepped out of one of the most emotionally intense nights of the year, and when morning arrives, with its quiet and solitude, your thoughts begin forming uncomfortable narratives. Maybe you opened a particular conversation that still looks exactly the same, waiting to see a specific name, a small signal, or a brief message that would confirm that what you shared truly had meaning. Instead, you were met with silence or replies from people who evoke no feeling at all. At that moment, a question naturally arose. A doubt that slowly erodes your sense of calm and eventually brought you here. If nothing arrived, does that mean you no longer matter? I want you to pause that harmful line of thinking right now. Breathe deeply and allow these words to settle, because what follows can change how you interpret everything that just occurred. There is a common and often damaging belief that if someone cares, they will always reach out. If someone loves, they will always speak. We were conditioned to judge interest and attachment only through visible actions and immediate contact. However, depth psychology and the exploration of the human mind reveal a far more layered reality. At times, silence is not a lack of feeling, but an excess of emotion with no clear expression. And at times, doing nothing is not caused by indifference, but by an inner resistance so powerful that it halts action entirely. You are here because you want clarity about what was truly happening inside this person during the Christmas season. You want to know whether your memory disappeared among decorations, meals, and gatherings, or whether your absence became the most noticeable presence of that night. The simple truth is this: memory does not work like a switch that can be turned off for the holidays. In fact, as Carl Jung and other early thinkers of the psyche explained, the unconscious mind does not follow direct orders. The harder we try to avoid thinking about someone, the more firmly their image settles within us. What you need to understand today is this: the silence you encountered is not evidence that you no longer matter. Rather, it is far more likely evidence that you mattered deeply. Over the next few minutes, we will move together into this person's inner world. We will look beyond social media images and outward appearances to understand what was truly happening within them. You will see that at the exact time you were hurt by the silence, this person was engaged in a quiet struggle with their own memories. A struggle in which your name resonated more strongly than any holiday song or empty small talk. Be prepared to adjust your perspective from pain toward understanding, because what seems like indifference is often simply a shield built from fear. If you are willing to apply this realization to your own life, write in the comments, "I am an unforgettable presence." To fully understand what was occurring inside this person during that period, we first need to look at the psychological background. Christmas and the days surrounding the New Year are more than just calendar events. From the standpoint of depth psychology, they act as powerful emotional catalysts. These moments awaken archetypal images of belonging, home, safety, and a return to one's roots. An invisible, almost environmental pressure forms, urging every individual to reassess their emotional connections. No one is immune to this process. Even those who appear distant or unmoved are internally undergoing this silent evaluation. Picture this scenario for a moment. This person was among others, perhaps family members, close friends, or even someone new. The setting encouraged celebration. Soft lights flickered, music evoked memories of childhood, familiar scents stirred the senses, and there was an unspoken social expectation to look happy. This is where Carl Jung's idea of the persona becomes relevant, the social mask we all adopt to function and endure in society. At a Christmas gathering, this person had to secure that mask more firmly than usual. They smiled on cue, lifted a glass at appropriate moments, and joined conversations that likely failed to touch anything meaningful within them. Maintaining this role requires significant effort. When someone is not aligned with where their soul wants to be, or when an essential emotional element is missing, the act of performing happiness quickly depletes their inner energy. Their body may have been seated at the table, exchanging gifts, but part of their mind had drifted away, searching for what was absent. This is the paradox of being surrounded by people, yet feeling internally disconnected. Loneliness is often most intense when you are among people, yet feel no real bond with them. Surrounded by unfamiliar laughter, the silence inside can feel overwhelming. It is important to understand that the unconscious mind works through association and contrast. Everything this person observed around them functioned like a reflection. When they noticed happy couples, their mind instinctively searched its stored memories for moments of love and connection shared with you. When they saw close families, they unconsciously remembered the unique bond you once had or believed you had together. This was not a deliberate act. They did not choose to miss you. Your memory surfaced unexpectedly. On days like these, nostalgia is not something one controls. It arrives like a wave that takes over. Consider the effort required to appear fine on the outside while an emptiness is quietly opening within. The person you might imagine as carefree and moved on was, in reality, dealing with strong inner conflict. Externally, they lifted a glass and showed a rehearsed smile. Internally, their thoughts were already with you. A social mask may mislead family members or social media, but it cannot deceive the heart when night arrives. In fact, the louder the celebration, the more noticeable your absence became. Psychology explains that people constantly seek inner balance. When the external world feels shallow or disordered, the inner self looks for something genuine. This is where you played a role, perhaps without realizing it. In the center of the festive environment, you represented authenticity to this person. Your memory turned into a refuge they could retreat to when social pressure felt overwhelming. You were not a passing thought. You were the emotional grounding that helped them endure the evening. It is misleading to assume that sadness or longing disappears simply because someone is surrounded by others. Physical proximity cannot replace what the soul is missing. If this person is involved in a relationship built on distraction or surrounded by connections that do not truly fulfill them, Christmas becomes a powerful lens that enlarges the inner emptiness. When compared to the shallow interactions around them and the warmth or calm they once felt with you, the contrast becomes unmistakably painful. Nostalgia is not just about missing someone. It is a clear recognition that something meaningful was lost, and that what remains cannot fully replace it. So remove that idea from your thoughts, the idea that this person simply erased you from their life. That is not what occurred. What actually happened was a performance. While they played a visible role for others, their internal dialogue was focused entirely on you. A social persona may conceal reality from others, but it often pressures the person maintaining it. And in those exact moments of inner strain when their attention drifts briefly into emptiness during a Christmas dinner, it is your name that surfaces in their mind, vivid and unavoidable. They did not think of you in spite of the celebration, but because of it. Nothing highlights the value of a real bond more than being required to participate in a display of happiness. Once you recognize that the visible cheer was likely a defense strategy, and that the setting itself triggered memories of you, it becomes necessary to look further. This was not a general sense of longing. There was a specific, almost physical experience taking place at their table and later in their private space. In psychology, this is described as the projection of inner absence, and it was clear evidence that although you were not physically present, you were the most significant person that evening. This leads directly to what was happening within this person on a deeper level, a dynamic known in close bonds as the empty chair effect. It is important to note that this has nothing to do with whether a chair was actually vacant or if someone was seated next to them. They were likely surrounded by people, sitting closely with little room to withdraw. Yet, in psychological and emotional terms, physical proximity does not matter. The empty chair represents a void in the emotional field, an internal space, a place within the self that no one else can occupy, regardless of how many attempt to do so. During the celebration, this absence became especially intense, beyond logical explanation, and it carried your identity. Visualize the situation clearly to understand what this person experienced. This is someone no longer beside you. The evening progressed like any ordinary holiday gathering. Cutlery tapped softly, voices crossed, people shared laughter, glasses touched in quiet toasts, and yet within all this sound, something unavoidable occurred. Their mind began to look for you, not by choice. They did not consciously decide to think about you. It happened automatically, as natural as breathing. While glancing left or right during casual conversation, the subconscious detected a subtle imbalance. For a brief moment, perhaps only an instant, they searched for a familiar presence and found nothing. That was when the empty chair formed in their inner awareness. Your absence was no longer just missing. It turned into something real, a presence that occupied more space than any actual person in the room. This inner reaction was intensified by the sensory weight of Christmas. Familiar food aromas, soft lights, a specific melody. Each of these acted like keys unlocking memory. Maybe a song played that you once shared. Maybe the flavor of a dessert reminded them of a dinner you had together. And, in that precise moment, past and present merged. For a brief second, they could almost sense your hand, hear your laugh, notice your scent, and when awareness returned to the present, the absence struck sharply. The trigger existed, but you did not, and because people struggle with emptiness, the mind tried to replace it, not by forming something new, but by returning to an idealized version of you. In their thoughts, you became the missing element that would have completed the evening, and this is where the most uncomfortable yet meaningful moment for you begins. The quiet comparison begins. You may be troubled by the idea that they are now involved with someone else, a new partner, a new focus. The mind quietly suggests that your role has been taken by another, yet behavioral psychology offers a very different perspective. If this person entered a new relationship, the holiday season became the real test, and in many cases, that test was not passed, because holidays demand closeness. When that closeness is not backed by a genuine soul-level bond, internal distance appears. Each time the new partner spoke without truly understanding her. Each time, a pause in conversation felt tense instead of natural. Each time the humor missed its mark, her thoughts drifted back to you. She measured what once was against what now exists. The depth you shared versus the shallowness she experiences now. Your meaningful looks compared to the vacant gaze she currently receives. On this unseen scale of the heart, the present lost its value while your memory grew stronger. This is the cost of having known a real connection. Everything afterward feels like a weaker version of life. In the middle of the holiday noise, she realized that physical closeness does not ensure emotional connection. You can embrace someone and still feel cold inside when the energy is misaligned. Your absence carried more weight than any nearby presence. This is the truth her ego refuses to admit, but her unconscious expressed it all night long. You became a soft presence, a warm shadow at the table, quiet, aware, smiling. As she watched others laugh, she felt like an outsider in a story that was not hers, repeating words she never authored, quietly wishing the evening would end so she could return to silence and the memory of you, that empty space within her that is you, the place where honesty, openness, and unconditional acceptance exist. The things only you offered her because something vital was missing. The celebration felt unfinished, like a song without its main notes. To understand why the surroundings were not enough, one must look deeper. We often fail to recognize the impact of someone who understands not only our strengths, but also our shadows. Those around her may have known the pleasant, capable, outward version of her, but you knew her fears, her deepest pain, and her unfulfilled hopes. This level of closeness is uncommon and not easily replaced. That truth became clear to her in moments of unexpected sadness or emotional weight. No one there had the inner map to her soul the way you did. In a small, ordinary moment, she may have wanted to share a passing thought, make a dry remark about the food, or communicate with a simple look. But she met only barriers, no openings. You were that opening, you were her access point to herself. Without you, she felt confined within a version of herself she had to maintain. This created a powerful sense of emotional suffocation. Even if it looked like she had continued with her life, Christmas has a way of reopening wounds that never fully healed. The empty chair that represented you stood for all the words left unspoken and all matters left unresolved. In the middle of widespread holiday happiness, she struggled with a quiet sense of self-betrayal. How can someone raise a glass to togetherness while feeling internally disconnected from the person who mattered most? How can love be celebrated when the heart is still attached to the past? This internal tension slowly drained her energy. As the evening progressed, she likely felt worn out, restless, or hollow, not because the day was demanding, but because pretending takes effort. The pretense that she was whole without you was exhausting. This is where the psychological process of wish projection begins. Your absence caused her mind to replay the strongest memories you shared. Notably, when someone is missing, the mind often preserves only the positive moments. Disagreements and difficulties fade, leaving only what was good. In her thoughts, you became idealized. You turned into the reference point, the standard against which everything else was compared. No conversation felt as meaningful as the ones with you. The food lacked its former flavor. The music failed to move her. The evening seemed to lose its glow. Without being there, you claimed Christmas, because your absence amplified your presence in her thoughts. She may have checked her phone, not to send a message, but to see if one had arrived from you. Perhaps she was hoping for something that would ease her inner unease. She wanted to know if you felt the absence as deeply as she did. However, the fear we will address later prevented her from acting. Still, the longing remained, present and intense. The empty chair was more than a symbol. It carried emotional weight. Where a strong bond once existed, an energetic imprint remains, and that imprint is distinct. No other person or situation could truly replace your role. Each time something felt off, her thoughts circled back to you. With you, things felt simpler. At that time, everything seemed more genuine. Feeling alone while surrounded by others is one of the most difficult emotional states a person can experience. It is often the unspoken consequence for those who pull away from real connection due to fear or pride. Yes, she attended a celebration, she ate, drank, and perhaps even laughed. She may have shared a smiling photo. Yet beneath the surface, she was quietly speaking to you in her mind, sharing jokes that only you would understand. She quietly reflected on the strangeness surrounding her. In a soft, unspoken way, she asked you for forgiveness. That evening, you were the unseen guest of honor, the central figure in a gathering where you were not physically there, yet emotionally present at its core. So when you imagine her Christmas night, do not see a version without you. Instead, picture a moment where everything was measured against you. The vacant chair within her heart echoed your name so intensely that she could not fully enjoy the occasion. You have prevailed, even if it feels like loss, simply because your phone stayed silent. Living on in someone's heart and mind as an unreachable ideal is far more powerful than being physically present as an ordinary option, real, yet empty of meaning. You were the missing spark, the element that could have shifted everything, and the awareness that nothing feels the same without you settled quietly into her subconscious like a seed. That seed begins to take root when the holiday glow fades and the dull routine of January starts to loom. Your logical mind, the part of you that always looks for clear explanations, has probably told you it was nothing more than fatigue, seasonal pressure, or imagination. But it is important to understand that these feelings were neither accidental nor imagined. They were a direct reflection of what was unfolding on the other side of your connection. In the study of emotional bonds, there is a compelling idea. When two people share a deep emotional link, an unseen bridge forms between their inner worlds. This bond does not vanish with distance or silence. It endures, and at the exact moment when one soul experiences a strong emotional shock, like the pain of that empty inner chair, the energy begins to move. It does not fade away. It travels across this invisible bridge and reaches the other person. In this case, it reached you. That sudden wave of sadness, the heaviness in your chest, or the unexplained restlessness you felt, was not your own pain. It was hers, and because she could not express it or turn it into words, it emerged as a raw emotional signal that your system picked up. What you experienced is known as distant limbic resonance, a form of empathy that goes beyond space and time. Think back to when those sensations were strongest. They likely aligned with the late hours of the night when her social facade weakened and her true emotional state finally surfaced. If a sudden feeling of sadness came over you even though everything around you appeared normal, or if you unexpectedly felt the need to pull away without any clear explanation, it is very possible that in that precise moment you were sensing her emotional state. That was likely when she felt the most isolated, the most disconnected from herself, and deeply longing for you. It is important to acknowledge this because too often people who experience such feelings are quickly labeled as fixated or unable to let go. This, however, is not an inability to move forward. It reflects a deep level of emotional awareness and sensitivity. You are not stuck. You are responding to an energetic call, and the universe has its own methods of revealing truths that the rational mind often resists. These bodily sensations serve as clear evidence that the connection between you remained intact, even during periods of silence and no communication. Along with these physical signals, there is another strong indicator, and it often shows itself through dreams. It is not accidental if this person appeared in your dream shortly after a meaningful event, with an intensity and realism that deeply affected you. Dreaming of her was not simply a hopeful projection of your mind. In spiritual and depth psychology perspectives, it is widely recognized that during sleep, when the ego and logic are quiet, a space opens where deeper connections can occur. When she finally fell asleep after hours of emotional restraint and inner conflict, her mind was heavily occupied with thoughts of you. In the dream state, free from fear, pride, and control, her inner self reached out to yours. In those dreams where you talked, held each other, or simply shared a gaze, a genuine meeting occurred on a soul level. This was not fantasy, it was a form of communication between her inner world and yours. If she expressed missing you in the dream, if you perceived her as sad, vulnerable, or searching, that was not deception. It was a sincere message from her soul, far more authentic than any curated image shared online. Dreams during emotionally intense periods reveal inner truth rather than outward appearances. If she came to you in a dream, it was likely because in waking life she lacked the emotional strength or courage to face you directly. The dream space was where she felt safe, trusting that you would still understand her presence. Even during your waking hours, signs may have appeared. You might have noticed her name repeatedly in unexpected places, heard a meaningful song at the exact moment you felt ready to give up, or sensed her familiar scent when no one was nearby. These experiences are not random. When someone focuses emotionally and mentally with such intensity as she did that night, reality seems to align with that focus. It is as though her emotional energy influenced your surroundings, so the message could not be ignored. When the heart reaches out with sincerity, the universe responds. It does not treat love as a game, nor does it take emotions lightly. When the signs appear strong and keep repeating, it is because the energy coming from the other side remains steady. These unseen signals exist for a reason, to keep you grounded in the certainty that the connection is genuine. During extended periods of silence, we often start questioning our own thoughts. We wonder if it was all imagined or if we ever truly mattered. But energy does not mislead. If you felt that sharp ache in your chest, if the dream felt vivid enough that you woke with a sense of her presence, if the world seemed to echo her name everywhere, it is because the connection is still alive, it is active, it is moving, and this person, from within her space of silence and hesitation, is reaching out to you not through words, but through energy. You remain quiet, yet she continues to send signals that cross distances and barriers, hoping you will sense her. Now the choice is yours. You can dismiss these moments as passing coincidences, or you can acknowledge them for what they truly represent. They are a quiet call for connection, for understanding, for forgiveness, and for a sign that restores hope. Maybe you no longer need evidence. only reassurance that what you experienced was real, that your intuition was honest with you. Because when two souls genuinely recognize each other, no amount of silence is strong enough to erase that awareness. What once existed between you still continues, perhaps not through conversations or encounters, but through this enduring frequency that keeps drawing you back toward one another. And if you feel that, then write in the comments, "I felt it," in the middle of the silence.